Growing
Almost
up,
12, I hated
did you guys
being
ever
Chinese.
like
As a kid, I
hate
hated
being
being
Asian?
Asian.
I'd be like, oh, I don't want to be Asian.
I don't know how to start this video. I guess, hello guys, and welcome to my get ready with me whilst I rant about what has been on my mind recently, because it's been a lot and I just needed to dump it somewhere, and I guess what better place than my comfort platform, YouTube. So let's get into it. I already know what the title of this video is going to be, which is I hate being Chinese. You might be like, Michelle, that is a bit of a strong statement to make, and yes, it is. I wanted to dive into this whole Red Note TikTok thing as well. So we're gonna start at a point that is significant to me, and that is childhood. So I think a lot of people will probably relate to the statement being made, I hate being Chinese, especially as a kid. Let's start with school. So whenever it was a birthday, I remember so significantly that there was this birthday song here in the Netherlands, which for people that don't know, I grew up in the Netherlands. It was called Hunky Punky Shanghai. Mind you, I was at the time, I think in what's 4th grade, when I realized this was strange, and they would sing as a Chinese birthday song, Hunky Punky Shanghai, something about an uncle living in a tower.
Hunky Punky Shanghai, Hunky Punky, Hunky Punky, Hunky Punky Shanghai.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be the birthday song. And when I tell you, the kids loved it, but when I tell you the teachers they did not see an issue with this. They were just like singing along, belting along, and it was seen as normal. And me as a kid was confused why suddenly 30 kids in a class were like pulling their eyes to make them look smaller and apparently more like mine. We're singing a song that wasn't Chinese, wasn't Happy Birthday Chinese. And for the people that don't know, 4th grade, you're like, I think, how old are you? 8 or something? I don't know. I was just like, who are these people and why do they think this is Happy Birthday in Chinese? The fact that stuff like that was seen as normal, I don't know, strange if you ask me. And then there's the stereotypes that you have with eating dogs. I've never really understood that. I don't know why that was a stereotype, and it's just so strange to me because like strangers think that, but also people are closer to you. I remember when I was little, I heard it so often, but I never really knew why. And when people would ask me, I'd just be like, I don't know, because I'm a kid and you're asking me something so strange. Like, as far as I know, I've never had a dog in my life, but maybe people do in China. I almost felt like I was being gaslit about a part of my identity. Is that a hair? That's a hair of mine. Hello, please unstick yourself from my face. I heard it so often, but I never really confronted anyone about it in my family or anything, because it's like, how am I supposed to bring this up? It's such a weird question. But my little brother, who apparently had more guts than I did, he fully went to my parents when he was, I think, give or take 6 years old. Also, my mirror's over there, so if you're like, what, where is she looking? There. When he was 6 years old, he goes to my parents and he goes, do we eat dogs? And I just remember the look of confusion on both parties. I was witnessing this whole thing. I was like, I have been waiting for this moment my whole life. Like, I have been wanting to ask, but I never did because I didn't want to. But he said it so blatantly that I was like, oh, okay, apparently we can just ask that, right? And my parents, I don't know why, but they had this moment of like, how does this kid get to this statement? Because obviously they're not new to this. They've heard this before. Like, they've had this slander at their head before. But a 6-year-old kid, you have to remember, like, their world is so tiny. They go to school, they see their family, they maybe see a couple of friends that they've most likely made through school. Like, who in that near vicinity put that idea in their head, right? So my parents, like, you see them craft like this little story of like, how are we going to tell this child how this phenomenon existed? And they go, well, we personally don't eat dogs, but back in history there were Chinese people that did eat dogs, like back in the day in rural areas where there was a scarcity of food and people had nothing else to eat. And they tried to explain them very carefully, being like, yeah, well, especially like they tried to explain the term speciesism, but then to a 6-year-old. So like, oh, there was no difference between eating a chicken or a dog because we hadn't made that connection of like, this is my pet yet, because people were literally starving. But till this day, it baffles me that that was my little brother at 6 years old, and then that was his perception. That was how the world viewed him, and that was the first time he kind of reflected that back in a sense. I don't know. But then last year was my first year of uni, so this past year, and I study a social science, okay? So we are taught to be very aware of social circumstances, and especially things like racism and power imbalances and stuff like that. And for some reason, me and a couple of other kids get to talking, and one of them turns to me, and the conversation was about racism, and because that was like the topic of one of our lectures. One of them turns to me, like literally goes in the conversation, I'm like, I'm sad, what do you want to ask? Like what's like, it felt so loaded. And I kid you not, he goes, so do Chinese people actually eat dogs? I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know how to answer this, because also personally I've been a pescatarian for like 6 years now, but also in general I was like, I don't know how to answer you this except for recycling the answer that my parents gave me, or like technically my little brother when he was younger. And so I explained like, well, it's not like a common practice right now, but yeah, there was a time. But I think it's so strange that people stereotype it, and obviously these were quite innocent questions that I'm giving as examples, but obviously I've heard people literally bark. They're like, woof woof. I'm like, oh, that is also an interesting way. And it kind of gets used as ammunition because people don't just innocently ask either. Like there have been moments where people are like, oh, dog eater. Like they stamp you with this identity and you're like, oh, okay, so apparently that's how I'm being viewed. It's just like growing up and knowing that you're different and you're being perceived as different, and almost always negatively as different. I remember being called not pretty, or not feeling pretty at least, or when I was being called pretty, I was like, oh, you're pretty as a Chinese girl. Like what is that supposed to mean, first of all? Like why was there a need to add as a Chinese? Like what does that mean? I'm not pretty in general. And not that I'm hanging on to so much of the fact that pretty mattered to me, but also yes, it did. You know, it wasn't that I needed to be perceived as pretty per se, but I heard that I never was, because the whole beauty standard of beauty in the West is just exactly the opposite of what I always was. And I don't know why, but it felt like there was so little representation and no one really saw me as pretty. Plus, if we're staying in the topic of childhood, you know how you have those like really cute innocent relationships when you're like 7 years old and you're like, oh my god, that's my boyfriend, and you dumped him at the end of the day? Yeah, I never had that. And as far as I know, many of the other Chinese girls that I know and boys, when I asked them that wasn't a thing. I don't know. There was always this part of me that wanted to fit in. I was like, I don't have blonde hair, I don't have blue eyes, and I just remember wishing that I wanted to fit in very badly. And I remember very badly that I wanted blonde hair. And I asked my mom, can I dye my hair blonde when I was, I think 9? And my mom went, no, there is no way you're dyeing all of this blonde. So I was very upset. Why in the world would you hate me that much, right? I was like, why would you not want me to be seen as popular, as pretty, as nice? Why don't you want other kids to like me? I thought she was ruining my life, okay? So at some point we got to an agreement that I was allowed to get dip dye. And if you don't know what dip dye is, bless you, that shit did not look good on me, okay? But I wanted blonde hair. So a dip dye is basically where you take the ends of your hair and you dip it and dye only the ends. And for me, that meant there was like a chunk that was blonde. Like imagine if I walked around right now with hair that this is blonde and the rest isn't. Yeah, you would think I was a little cuckoo, right? Not only that, I had the same thing with curly hair. I would curl my hair so much for like long periods of time. Like when I was a little older, like a teenager, but like only wear my hair curly, to the extent where I had people ask me if my hair was naturally curly, because I had it curly every single day of my life. Like there was not a day I would go without having curly hair. Like I would not be caught dead. So did I do that because I thought it would look pretty? Yes, but did I think it looked pretty at the time because it made me look a little bit less Chinese? I will not comment, but yes. Right now I still curl my hair pretty often. Like I love curling my hair. I think it looks so bouncy, voluminous, and cute. but it's not with the intent of, oh, I look less Chinese, because frankly I'm over that, but also that took time, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. Just the fact that if you would have asked me at the time, would you rather be a stunning, beautiful Chinese girl, like the most beautiful one out there, or just like an average looking, and I'm not making this face because I'm like trying to imagine or something, but like would I, like I just know that would have been my choice. Would you rather be an average looking white person? And like I would have chosen white person so many times over at the time, and it kind of hurts me to say it because I don't want to admit it. I don't, but I do know that that's the truth, and I can probably confirm that it has been the truth for many people in the past that now are very happy with who they are, but at the time, no. Also, I'm gonna quickly do my mascara, but I'm gonna do that off screen because I can't do mascara like a normal person, so BRB. Okay, I'm back. But considering the fact that beauty standards were something that I thought were anything but catered to me as a kid, I wasn't the only one that noticed, and it kind of breaks my heart to admit this, but my grandpa, when I was younger, he literally asked me if I wanted to get eyelid surgery when I was old enough, and not only asked me, but basically suggested that I did. As you can probably see, I do not have a double eyelid, as in what I like to call Western eyelids, but you know, I don't have that. I have a very typical monolid, and I don't know, he obviously saw it as well, but the fact that he was so subjected to like blatant racism and saw that how I wouldn't fit in, that he suggested to me, and yes, I was pretty young at the time, and no, I don't want to hear any slander about him because he meant it in the best way possible, that he suggested to me that I couldn't get that surgery if I wanted to, and that it would probably make my life in certain ways a lot easier. Yeah, that really pains me when I think about it, but I don't know how to feel about it because he obviously came to the Netherlands here as the first, and he came here in a time where there was a lot less Asian people in general and just a lot less social awareness about what racism entails and how it can hurt someone and how to navigate it, and I think that kind of just scarred him in a way. I don't want to fill in his words because he is gone now, but that's, I think, how he felt about it, and he just wanted to make my life easier by suggesting such a procedure. But yeah, that being said, I also think that he just experienced a lot of xenophobia due to the fact that the world wasn't as evolved as we like to think it is right now, and I say as we like to think it is now because obviously it's a lot better compared to what he went through, but I don't think it's perfect as of yet, or that it will be anytime soon. But that's obviously what we're trying to do with spreading awareness and talking about it and just educating people in general. So I wanted to talk about xenophobia. I don't know why, but something about xenophobia is just that it just hits very deep to me. So xenophobia, if you don't know what the term means, I'll put up the literal definition on the screen, but it just essentially means that it's just racism specifically towards Chinese people. And how I see it come back a lot is that a lot of Chinese things, like makeup brands, for example, Flower Nose, Judy Doll, they get rebranded as Korean instead of Chinese, sorry. And not only does that happen with makeup brands, obviously, it happens with traditions, with foods, and a lot of other aspects of Chinese culture just to make them simply more palatable, because in the West, in the recent couple of years, I feel like you see that a lot of Korean things and Japanese things get glorified almost, like people love it, they buy into it, and I'm so glad that at least some of the Asian culture has been accepted, I guess. That's the only way I can put it, because I think that has healed a lot of childhood wounds for a lot of people. But what I do miss is the fact that Chinese culture still gets seen as like the worst thing ever, and that it's still bad, and people don't hate it to the extent that they like the aspects of it and take it and mark it as something else. And I don't know why, but I just see it coming so often. Like, I get it, people don't like the Chinese government, and that is one thing, but I think we're also forgetting that you can split culture and people from government. So for example, you have tanghulu, which is nowadays you see a lot of strawberries coated in hard sugar, and people are going like, oh my god, that's such a cute Korean snack. I'm like, it's really not. It's traditionally made with hawthorn berries, and it is very much so Chinese. Same thing with Douyin makeup. it's been rebranding as like Korean makeup. Oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. When I scroll on like TikTok and I see it saying like, oh my god, Korean baby girl makeup or something like that, or like Japanese glitter, and it always looks stunning. But do you know what I also see oftentimes? Xiaohongshu watermark. And like, huh? This is Douyin makeup. Like, this is Chinese makeup. In the sense of, this is a Chinese girl that posted this. It's just so funny to me that people love certain aspects of like K-pop and like K-dramas, matcha, J-pop even, or like Japanese makeup, and then they turn around and they go, oh my god, I hate Chinese stuff. And I'm like, that is so interesting, especially if it is Chinese stuff. I do have an uncle and an aunt who are in the trading business. They made their slogan made by Chinese instead of made in China because there's such negative connotation with made in China for some reason. So they literally just rebranded that whole thing because they know, they're aware of the fact that people have a negative connotation with literally just the whole country. It's just strange to me. I don't even know how to properly articulate it right now. It's just so strange to me that people have made up their opinion that they hate something so much without even properly knowing it, and that's probably what irks me the most. How do you hate something so passionately without even properly knowing what it entails? And like most of the time, it's also people that have never been to China. It's just so strange how they have such a strong opinion about it when they've never been there. I do want to quickly hook into COVID, like not too much, but I would just want to ask if people remember like the blatant hatred that people had towards Chinese people because they thought that COVID originated from a Chinese place, and then all of a sudden all Chinese people in the world were just like the worst humans to ever exist. Yeah, I saw so many videos come by because my parents were sending them to me, friends were sending them to me, of like elderly people being in public transport, literally being like pushed off, being mistreated. I think that's a nice way I can put it. Just because they're Chinese, they were being called slurs, and obviously I noticed it myself as well, but not to that extent. Like I saw glares, I saw people looking very nasty at me, and sometimes saying like, oh, bat eater or whatever. Like I noticed it, but it didn't do too much to me personally. But seeing how a more vulnerable group got targeted as well, I also saw people, their houses being robbed, like all on video obviously, but it still like hurt me that a vulnerable group was targeted so much. And I don't know, I just wanted to add that in there, that this is not new either. Like it's not it didn't originate due to COVID. It just, I think, kind of amplified it, and I just wanted to have that part in the video because it was important to me to acknowledge that. And that brings me to my last point. So much for not getting too political, I guess. How the tables have turned. Or how to turn tables, if you like that one better. But the fact that America now is banning TikTok and everyone is moving to fucking Xiaohongshu, I'm like, interesting turn of events, because for the fact that so many people hated China and hate everything about China, they really are quick to switch up to a Chinese app. And I'm not saying all Americans or all people in the West hate Chinese people, but there is a very big amount of people that do. And I just think it's hilarious that everyone is now turning to a Chinese app, okay? I do have a couple of things to say about this move. First of all, please be respectful, because I'm not saying that I'm the type of person that was on Xiaohongshu every day, because I was not. I'm not going to be that hypocritical, but I was on Xiaohongshu like a couple times a week. I say was because I don't think I'm going to be on there as much, purely because I went there for cutesy girly content. I want to see makeup and wake up routines, okay? That's all I was there for. But now it's kind of just treated like TikTok 2.0, and that's just not the reason I was there, so I will be there less. Simply said. Not the point though. Be respectful. Add in Chinese captions if you use the app to make like English content, because imagine one day you wake up and suddenly all of your TikTok is in Chinese and you're like, huh, dude, I only see characters jumping around on my screen. Yeah, you're not gonna like that. So vice versa, think, be kind, be knowledgeable. That's one thing. Another thing is, why are we calling the app Red Note? Because wait, you might be like, Michelle, why is that a thing? And listen, the app is called Xiaohongshu, which literally translates to small red book. I can't make it simpler than that. It translates to small red book. And somehow we call it Red Note. Not that the translation is off, because like I guess somehow you could get a Red Note from Xiaohongshu. That's not the point. My point is that we have somehow all collectively decided that it's fine. And it's not a big problem, and I know I'm being very nitpicky about it, but I feel like in this video I can be. Xiao Hongsu, it's a Chinese name. I get it. Not everyone speaks Chinese. Sorry, hiccup. It's probably not very easy to pronounce for someone that doesn't know what the words mean or doesn't speak the language, and I understand that. I'm very sympathetic towards that. But how has no one, like, why was there no period of time of people trying to say Xiao Hongsu instead of Red No? Why has it overnight just been made so palatable to just be like, oh, Red No? Because I don't like the fact that it's been made palatable. It's a name. I feel like it's very easy to just call it what it is, and if not, maybe like at least I wanted to see some effort of people trying to kind of give it their best try, you know? And there's not a big problem attached to this at all. It just, I don't know, I don't like the fact that it's been made that palatable so easily, because it is a name, call it what it is. That's kind of my feeling towards it. And I just wanted to say that there is obviously this thing of like, what is going to happen to Xiao Hongsu now? Are they going to ban that too? And I really like the friendships that I see being made on Xiao Hongsu as well. Like, there is a very kind interaction right now, which I love, but I do think there is going to be consequences that we can't know as of yet, because who knows what's going to happen due to this merge of cultures and people. There's already talk that Xiao Hongsu is going to split foreign IP addresses and Chinese IP addresses from like the content from each other, just so that you kind of have that split between actual Chinese content and like what is basically TikTok refugee content, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's going to be more consequences like that, and why I think that first thing is very sad, because obviously I have a foreign IP address, for example, but I love Chinese Xiao Hongsu. Like, I like the girly content, and like I said, I'm not the person that was using it every day, and I'm not going to feel like it's a huge miss, but I'm going to miss it nonetheless. But there's surely some people out there that loved using Xiao Hongsu who did not live in China, but are like American-born Chinese or like somewhere else born Chinese, and they are now not going to be able to use Xiao Hongsu like they did. And I think that's very sad, because it almost feels like it's being taken over and being changed into something. Last but not least, I wanted to say I don't hate being Chinese. I flipping love it, and I think that for me was like a growing up thing to do. I grew up, I started to appreciate the culture, the food, the people, the language, and like the very rich history that China has. And obviously it's not that I agree with every single thing that happened in China or is happening in China right now, but that's not what I associate with being Chinese right now. It's me as a person and whatever history it has as a country, and the culture especially. I love it. And for me, the hatred that I experienced as a child was something mostly fueled by other people, their opinions, which obviously is something that plays a really big role when you're smaller and younger and more impressionable. For me, went as far as like, I thought I was going to marry a white man. Genuinely, I thought I was going to marry a white man, because I hated like the internalized like racism that I had towards Chinese people was crazy. Like, I hated anything being associated with me that was Chinese, like whether that be people or culture. And it's so sad to say, and I don't want to say it, but I have to, I feel like. But right now, I am in such a happy place. I love China. I've been a couple times now, and I love it. I would move there in a heartbeat given the opportunity. I love the food. I love people. And I know it's so stupid to say it, but like the very big switch up that I think a lot of people have when they turn older, they start realizing, hey, I don't hate China. I was made to hate it in a way. And I want you to think about that if you're still in the beginning stages of like really struggling, because I hope that somehow reaches at least one person that is younger and is very much struggling with that they're Chinese. I don't know why, but yeah, I hope one person. That's kind of all I had to say about this for now, and maybe one day I'll have more to say. I don't know if I want to upload this right now, but I guess if you're seeing this, I did